There's so much joy in this world, but the reality is there's a lot that troubles us as well, isn't there? So what if we could have a fresh start? There was this group of friends. There was several men, a few ladies, and they literally traveled with Jesus 24/7 for about 3 years. And they watched Jesus do things that nobody had ever done. One example of many, there was a man who was born blind. Jesus met him. Jesus put his hands on his eyes, and the man could see. So after this group of friends watched Jesus do things like that for 3 years, they put their faith that Jesus was the one that God had talked about, that he was sending into the world that would bring us hope, bring us the fresh start. But then Jesus told that group of friends, I'm going to die. But don't let your hearts be troubled. Keep trusting in me. So obviously, Jesus knew something the group of friends didn't. Jesus knew that death was not the end of the story. So it had been about a week since Jesus told his best friends that he was going to die. And he did die. But it wasn't a normal death. It was in public, and it was brutal. It was a crucifixion on this wooden cross. And these best friends were scared to death that if they killed Jesus and they found out that they were friends of Jesus, maybe they'd be killed too. So they ran, they hid, they found a room, and they got behind a locked door, and they were just terrified. And they were so confused because Jesus had told them, I'm going to die, but don't let your hearts be troubled. And yet they were deeply troubled. Not just troubled, they were scared to death. But the Bible says that right then, Jesus appeared in that room and stood right in front of them and said, be at peace. And there it is. Even though our lives can be filled with such fear, we can find peace. And the peace is found in the man named Jesus. 3 days after Jesus was crucified and put in a tomb, Jesus came back to life. And he surprised his best friends. When they were hiding in that room because they were afraid they too would be killed, he literally stood in the middle of the room and said, be at peace. Well, all those friends were together to celebrate that, except for one. His name was Thomas. I love Thomas because Thomas was that friend who had hard questions, and he wasn't afraid to ask those hard questions of Jesus. You would say that he doubted some of the things that Jesus was teaching. So the group of friends wanted so badly for Thomas to know this good news, so they went to find him, and they told him, we have seen Jesus, he's alive. But Thomas said, I don't believe it. I won't believe it unless I can put my fingers where the nails were in the hands of Jesus. That's where so many people can relate to Thomas. So many hard things to believe when we can't see it or we can't touch it. That's why the story of the resurrection is so wonderful, because doubt can give way to hope. It's so hard to believe in things that we can't see. That's why it was so hard for Thomas. All of his close friends had seen Jesus come back from the dead, but Thomas didn't see him. Well, the friend group was all together once again, and this time when Jesus appeared in the room, he looked right at Thomas, and he said, Thomas, come put your hands where the nails were. Well, the Bible says Thomas didn't move. He simply said, my Lord and my God. It's what Jesus said next that I think is so important for us today. He told Thomas, it's great that you've seen me and believe, but more blessed are the people who have not seen me and yet believe. That's us. We weren't there 2,000 years ago. We've not seen Jesus. It's choosing to believe that the book called the Bible is true, and that what Thomas thought unimaginable, Jesus made possible. And the story of Easter invites us to come and see the difference that Jesus can make.